Hello and hey, on this episode of Light on the Trail, we're going to be talking about the mental game and how important it is. How important it is to stay realistic and optimistic. Alrighty, this is Light on the Trail podcast. On this episode, we're going to be looking forward, getting our heads screwed on straight, and talking about mental toughness, mental awareness, being mentally responsible, because I think it leads to a lot of things, about building a realistic yet optimistic foundation. I think when we have a positive outlook on almost everything, if not everything, it's hard to think why wouldn't you, or, not saying that's always easy, but having a foundation where your first thought is that sucks, but this could be worse, or I can do better, or this door's opened up because of that. In anything, I've found extremely helpful. And this goes to one of my favorite things with running, of just being alone and having that time with yourself. It's just you and your thoughts and handling that. And I don't know, I'm sure this could be hard for some people because maybe it beats them up mentally if they're in a negative place. And of course, the weather changes and we could be in a positive place or something tragic could happen. And the last thing we need is to be by ourselves and just kind of beating, we're always our worst critics and beating ourselves up. But it's something I've always believed in, which really turned me on to this book called Do Hard Things from Steve Magnus. It's a very popular book. I think it's a couple years old, I believe, but very popular book, Do Hard Things by Steve Magnus. I've been reading it this year. I'm almost done with it. And that's what it's talking about, is mental toughness. Giving yourself the ability to have other options and to control what you can control. And I'll actually quote something. They've got little tidbits throughout the book, kind of highlighted, of course, and like here's solid. There's real good pieces all through it. And I like that it shows a lot of, it talks about a lot of statistics and studies done, and everything's kind of really open your eyes. But here's just a little segment out of one. So, real toughness is experiencing discomfort or distress, leaning in, paying attention, and creating space to take thoughtful action. It's navigating discomfort to make the best decision you can. I believe there's another portion in the book. It talks about mental toughness as far as being responsible to step back and give yourself the space to react. I like when we break down the word responsible, right? Are you able to respond appropriately? Right? Or are you able to respond in an optimistic way? If you've built your foundation with these options, then you have a better chance of noticing when things start to get hairy and how to respond to them, right? So saying all this is just, it can kind of get deep, but it makes sense, right? So I know as far as any sport, and this goes with work or anything else, but in running, and we start getting in that pain cave, right? And you're just fighting yourself, having those good thoughts, having a, like people say, even a mantra, something uplifting, something you can control. That's part of the mantra, is like, what do you have control of? Okay, well now I ran out of water and the sun's going down and I'm an hour behind where I thought I was going to be. I can control. Here's my mantra. I can look down and stay positive and put one foot in front of the other. All these little steps. So you start having more to say arrows in your quiver of how to respond to things, right? It's so helpful, of course, with anything in life. And with that, so I've got the Sufferfest that I've talked about. There's an interview when I was talking to Jeffrey Claprote about that, and we're going to be doing that tomorrow night. But Wednesday, I went out for a last little run, a little 5K, little 3 miles on this little sidewalk that I've done plenty of times, so many times. And later that evening, my left foot starts hurting. And I didn't step off or fall or trip or anything during that run. It kind of feels like a puncture wound almost, just in a weird kind of sore spot. It's the middle of my forefoot, like my knuckles next to the ball of my foot, where the rest of I don't want to say underside knuckles would be of my foot, but those kind of 3 middle toes, or my middle toe is just been sore. Like my foot, like flattened, like it's got either not squish, but almost unsupported. I don't really know what like a collapsed arch would feel like, or if that's in something I don't know. Um, but it just started hurting, and again, it was a totally fine. I kept it real light and easy. I didn't push anything. I was just trying to do a little shakeout run to get, stay mentally sharp and feeling for the legs ready and keep the blood flowing and all that good stuff. And so it's been a couple days after, and it's Friday now, and it's still kind of sore. I have been icing it some and elevating it and do all that I can. And that's kind of where I'm going with this is, of course, uh, maybe not of course, to me, I immediately went to that like, oh my gosh, I've been training for this run. I've been looking forward to this race, right? How many times did this happen? It's going to be your first whatever, my first 30K, my first marathon, my first road marathon or whatever, something you're looking forward to at all. And then something happens, your stomach gets upset from nerves, or you ate something else or what have you. And, and you're like, great. So not only the first step that does rise a negative effect, I believe, and it can build from that. Great. Now I know that maybe 10 miles in the race, my foot's going to keep hurting, and it's going to be because it's going to slow me down. I'm just going to have to be careful. And what if it hurts more, or during the race and it's hurting more? And I'm going to be like, yep, there it is. Why try to go fast now? Let's just finish the thing. You can put in line the next step or the next goal, like, oh, well, or if it gets worse, what if it's really bad? Should I just drop out? Is it safer for me to do that? Should I just quit? There's grounds for that sometimes, right? Is it long-term effect? Are you really about to hurt yourself? And your body, which is why it's important to really keep training and stay consistent, listen to yourself. But something else it mentions in the book, and a lot of people have kind of talked about before though, is that you can look at something as a challenge and not a threat, understanding that the weather just changes and we got to adapt with it, right? So a challenge is something that will help you grow, and you can adapt or learn from, where a threat is more almost I'm gonna say violent, but a threat. Like it's not life or death, but you think it can be this super severe thing that you have no other option. And then you're in that negative mindset, and it feeds everything else, right? And by a major or minor amount, but it has an effect on you. And staying positive feeds more, positivity, to say. So I've went with that, and that's the goal, right? Just, hey, it's a challenge. It's going to be fine. I've done all I can do here. I bet it'll be good. I'm going to get some good sleep. Once I get moving, I bet I won't even notice. And if I do, I'll push through it and just stay in a way. But staying positive, of course, can help so much with so many minor or major things. Recently, I've been in the book of Luke, and it's talked about this in other books before there in the New Testament, but having that time, like saying, to be alone when you're running, I think is really special and personal and good for anybody to work out thoughts in their head, or go through actions, reflect on things, have ideas. It can almost be like it's just a special, alone time you can appreciate when you're back with your loved ones or family, or with other people when you're spent that time by yourself, or vice versa. And a lot of times it's a getaway for people, right? We've said before, like a moving meditation. But in Luke, there's times since I've been reading in chapter 4 and chapter 5 where it talks about Jesus is found on his own, or Jesus wanders off to pray, to have his alone time, or talk to God and everything. So in Luke chapter 4 actually says, and this is through the NIV, but Jesus often went to lonely places and prayed. Chapter before that, in chapter 4, is when he healed many. And one of my favorite stories, I believe that is it, where the paralyzed man's friends come to the home where Jesus is healing these people, and they get to the roof and they tear the roof off, essentially, to lower the man down on his mat, and Jesus heals him because of their faith. And after that, people are looking for him because he's done these great things, and he's found off by himself praying, and they want him to stay, and he's like, no, I need to go, keep spreading this and talk to everyone else. Even Jesus needed a time alone. It's a special time. And I think you can add that with some prayer and scripture and being positive, and these things will just start to snowball in a good way, and it can lead to like awesome things, and motivation. I highly recommend, like I say, I do. Praying on the trail is almost like a just a I want to say chant or like a cheerleading kind of a thing, but it gives me something to do and keep my mind off bad things. And I just keep talking, and sometimes we have really good vibes going. I'm really looking forward to this race. Like I said, I've been working up to it. My first night race. I'm just ready to relax and get it done and get the headlamp going. I've remembered my batteries. I'm going to bring everything that I think I need, right, until I realize that I don't have it and I don't need it. But turn it into a challenge. It's not a threat. It's a challenge. It will get done. I will adapt, and what will happen will happen. It's going to be an awesome time. And that's just the way to go about it, right? With the podcast, though, I do have some big announcements coming up, that we'll keep a lookout for that. One, personally for me, it's going to open the doors to some things, and then also some interviews coming up. One for sure, I'll be interviewing here pretty recently. This is usually, the episodes come out on Sunday, so I'll be running. Actually, I will be on the trail during when this comes out at 5 minutes into the next morning, or 0500 or 0500, whatever. 5 minutes into Sunday morning is when this releases. So send me your prayer, say good luck. If you happen to be hearing this before daybreak, I guess, hopefully I'll finish the 33 miles before the sun comes up. But an interview coming up, which would hopefully be the next episode, possibly another one I've got lined up. I've just been reaching out to a lot of people, and fortunately I've had a lot of responses back, which is half the battle. The biggest thing, and again, with everything, if you can have a mental, your sight forward, your head on straight, have a positive, realistic foundation, and show up to whatever it is, do the thing, just be there and be ready, for all that you can do. You can gain so much from that. And realistic is very important. Of course, you can't just be, yes, I can do this, I will do this, all that. It does build and help you mentally, but you also need to be realistic with yourself so that when it doesn't happen, you're not so crushed. I think that can be the fall down for a lot of people. And again, I've had it happen to me, where you have trained, right? You've done this thing, whatever it is, and you get to do it, and you just crash and burn, and everything comes crumbling down, and you're so upset and sad, and that's life. But understanding that's always a possibility, and if that happens, we're just going to keep rolling with the punches. Building a realistic, optimistic foundation. But yes, cool announcements coming up. Keep your head up, guys. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep grinding. Get comfortable. Being uncomfortable is another term I like to throw around, right? Don't be sedentary. Keep moving. Thank y'all for being here so much. This is Light on the Trail podcast, and may the dirt be forever under your feet.